Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahi Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sahna Vavatu Sahno Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahe. Om Asato ma Sadgamaya Tamaso ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhagavave. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Sai Ram. Good evening and welcome to day 14 of the Atma Chalisa Parayanam. So quickly we'll recap that yesterday we had a special session from Tiruvannamalai, from Maharshi Ramana's ashram, and so the message came directly from the master, and we had a beautiful session about the self and experiencing the energetic presence of the self and the divine grace of the master. We don't have to go to a particular place to experience it. It was just that we were there and we invited the master to come, and the masters are always ready for those who are seeking, for those who are on this path and are earnest in their seeking. The masters and all other forms of gods and goddesses, they appear for the ones who are ready. And that is the most essential ingredient, our own readiness, our own preparedness, and our own ability to surrender ourselves to these higher forms of consciousness. Actually, there is no difference between us and them. We are all in a constant state of oneness and union with these higher beings and higher manifestations. They are actually archetypes of our understanding of higher consciousness, and we give them a name, we give them a form, and those form kind of is very pleasing, and we kind of interact with those forms, and their presence is with us for a reason, and that reason is to make us experience in this particular body and form and with this particular mind that oneness, that there is actually no duality and that there is no difference. So taking our experiential journey forward and picking up from Maharishi Ramana's message that the real self is beyond the body and the mind, and if we remain in abidance of that self, then we move away from all that binds the mind and the body. That means the karmic influence, the influence of past actions, the effect of the past actions, that is only and only effective to the mind-driven body. And as soon as we disconnect from it, as soon as we sever that connection in our awareness, because everything is happening actually in our awareness of being I am the body, and our awareness of there being a mind, because actually there is nothing called a mind. The mind is not the brain. The mind is actually just a concept, and that concept is not physical in nature, but yet we believe in it. It's so amazing how we have been brainwashed over a period of time by these concepts that we are able to believe in the mind while mind physically does not exist. We are able to believe in a heart, a spiritual heart, when physically it does not exist. But yet we are not able to believe in the God that is also within us. Isn't it so amazing that we choose to believe what is forcefully told to us by our environment, and we choose to disbelieve what we are not ready to accept. So another way of looking at it and bringing it into our experience is what we are going to talk about today, that the whole idea of permanence residing in impermanence. We have been talking for the last 1 week about all these contradictions that exist around us. We've talked about duality, and we've talked about oneness residing in duality. We've talked about the opposing forces and how, the good and bad is what is essential, on this journey. We've talked about perfection residing in imperfection. So an imperfect world is actually very perfectly orchestrated for us to gain that experience. So in the same way, the self, as we call, as the Atman, is different from the jiva, which is the mind and body apparatus. And that apparatus of the body and the mind is like everything else that is created in this world, is subject to change. It is impermanent. So if we see all around us, whether in nature is constantly changing. There are seasons, and we adjust our time clocks based on the seasons. We have changes in the human body. We grow from a child's body to a adult's body, and to a elderly body, an old body, and to the state of being no body. The trees are constantly changing from being full of leaf to shedding leaves to bearing flowers and bearing fruits. They are constantly changing. Our physical appearances are changing. All that we eat to sustain the energy in our body is also undergoing change. The cells in our body are also getting created, and they are getting destroyed. So if we look out, everything around us is constantly changing, including our physical appearance. And yet the self remains as it is. And as Ramana said, that it is ever present, because it was neither born nor does it die. There is something that is permanent, which was, which is, and which remains. And that is the reason why each one of us takes birth again and again. And that is why all these different masters and gods and avatars, we have a god for almost every occasion, every shape, every type, because we created them. We gave them energy and they became real. And they are as real as we want them to be. And we are as real as they are. The only difference is that we see them. Some of us are able to see them. Some of us are able to play with them. Some of us are able to talk to them. And we are ready to believe in them because we are seeing them. But what we see is as much as an illusion. What we hear is as much as an illusion, because it is all coming from outside. They come as harbingers of a message. And the message that they bring is that if you believe in me or in us, then you must believe that you are one with us. You are the same as us. Whatever form you like the form of Ramana, you like the form of Ganesha, you like the form of Devi, whatever you like. There is absolutely no difference between you and that, because I am that. You are that. And whenever we experience these masters, that's the only message. A lot of people have been asking me about dreams, or we see them coming in our homes, or we, experience their presence, energetic presence. Their presence is only and only for one reason. And that reason is to start believing, just like that the mind exists, and just like that the spiritual heart exists, there is that within us that is absolutely in oneness, that is absolutely same as the divine consciousness. And we need to completely change our focus from the outside to the inside. And even if we are seeing Sai Baba standing in front of us, we still have to request that master. We have to request that form. Please let me see you inside of me. Please let me experience you within me as me, and not being separate and other than me. Because as long as those forms keep coming, while they bring a lot of energy, while they bring us a lot of joy, but it still keeps us in hallucination, in separation, and we are not separate. So anytime each one of you experiences a presence, I would urge you to pray to that presence and say, please bless me that I see you only within me, and I do not see you as separate from me. Give me this experience, because that is the experience for which we are here. Everything else is like children playing and getting excited, and we are keeping away from the real, and that real does not go. That real does not leave. Actually, that real has never left us. It's just that we are so outwardly focused and so outwardly fascinated and so outwardly trapped that we are not able to recognize its presence. It does not suddenly appear. It does not suddenly announce its presence. It is there. It is just that suddenly we start experiencing it. So it does not come and go from anywhere. It does not come from a portal and does not manifest itself. It is there, and it is who we truly are. And we are that close to getting to this experience, and it can happen any day. And that's the reason, as I keep saying again and again, we chose to do a 40-day Parayanam, because we want this 40 days of intensity, because this intensity is required to go within. And that intensity will, that last leg, that last effort, that requires a supersonic jet to push you into that state of one consciousness. That's all it is required. And therefore, I will keep saying to you again and again, please do be present. Try not to, get out of this even for a day, even for something which is very pressing, because there cannot be anything more pressing than what we are doing right now. And once you become in that oneness, in that awareness that Maharishi Ramana talks about, that he constantly abides in that, then it does not matter how many calls and meetings and conferences you have to go to. Make sure that once, which is so close to this experience, once we get enough inner vision, inner focus, inner willpower, intensely seeking that, it will happen. Then it will never leave you, because you are now hooked onto that. Then no matter what you do during your day, no matter what your body is involved with, no matter what your mind is telling you, you will not participate in it. You will have that clarity, the clarity that everybody got yesterday, with the presence of a master's energy, that peace. Remember, we've been saying, what is that final experience, that ananda that we talk about? The experience of self-realization is the experience of deep peace and contentment, which is uninterrupted, which does not stay for that evening and night and disappears the next day. So we've been experiencing it, and we know now what it is. We will be able to recognize it when it remains with us, when we stop getting distracted by the illusory world. Because everything, believe me, even if you think you're doing God's work or your guru's work, it is an illusion. It does not exist. Anything from the outside is a trap and is binding you down for whatever reasons. Good reasons, not so good reasons. Everybody's reasons are very good. But once we achieve that stillness, and once we achieve that clarity that comes from that stillness, and that stillness and clarity comes when that which is permanent becomes our experience. And what we start experiencing is a state of continued, uninterrupted, and effortless peace and contentment, where nothing else is required, where there is no excitement at all at anything, and where every challenge seems to be as exciting as any joy is. That state of oneness, where nothing alters, is where we are headed. And like everything else, this permanence is born in this impermanent world only. And that is the reason why the world, the imperfect world, is impermanent. It's subject to change. is subject to destruction. So you look at it from any side, you would understand that the nature of the world is Maya. That's why we call it Maya, because Maya is illusory. It looks so real. It looks so attractive. All these things are so attractive to us. But yet, if we are focused on the inner essence of why we are doing what we are doing, why are we so caught up in the act that we must keep doing it in the name of A, B, C, D, whatever reason you might give yourself, but we are still caught up. And, either we are doing it for some good reason, for some higher purpose, or for, any reason, whatever reason it is, compulsion, force, seva. As long as we feel that we must do something, we're still not free. We're still caught up. And the minute you become one with yourself, all that you think which was holding you down, all that where you felt compelled to do certain things, when you move away from that feeling where you do not find any compulsion whatsoever from any source for anything, that truly is when you are free. That is when the mind is no longer creating any kind of illusion, compulsion. And that is when you're still. And that is when you're not getting attracted by the urgings of your mind or the discomfort of your body. That's why we feel, a lot of us feel restless and we need to keep doing things, because we don't know if we were to become silent and if we were to be still, what would we be able to do? I used to run around a lot. I remember I could never stay still. And I needed to get out of the house. I needed to do things. I had a lot of nervous energy in me. And my master kept pushing me in and kept pushing me in. And it was great reluctance. Why? Because the mind didn't like it. But only when you get into that physical stillness. And I think that is where this whole era of COVID was able to push people en masse across the world into at least a time of physical stillness where everybody was withdrawn from outside contacts. And that was given as an opportunity for all of us to go within and experience the experience that we have not been able to get for ourselves. So it is that permanence that we are talking about. It's that permanence that Maharishi Ramana talks about. And it is that permanence which we attribute to our master like Satya Sai Baba or Jesus or any other master that we believe in. And once that peace and stillness comes, this permanent consciousness starts to speak to us through intuition and inner promptings, which is very different from our mind. The minute you start sitting in silence and stillness, your mind will immediately start prompting you of the things that you have not done so far or what you need to do. It happens all the time. It suddenly starts to chatter. The mind is quiet before that because you're busy doing something else. But the minute you say that I'm going to be now silent, I'm going to meditate, suddenly the mind starts to become active. And the only thing that we need to do at such a time is to just not pay any attention to the mind, not run to a notebook and start taking notes, not try and say, oh, I hope I will not forget this. Don't worry, nothing is going to go away anywhere. We just have to learn to ignore the promptings of the mind. This is what the mind is telling you. And when you go into deep silence, when you are in a state of thoughtlessness, is when your higher self, your Atman, your self speaks to you. That is when the gods speak to you. That is when your master speaks to you. And that's the difference between listening to the mind and listening to the self. And slowly as the experience grows, and slowly as we start experiencing joy, and slowly as we start intuitively moving towards the promptings, heeding to the promptings that come from within, and slowly as we start to discern between the mind and the self, the duration of this experience of this peace, it starts to increase. I want you to start doing a lot of self-inquiry on this. And I have spoken many times that how come that when we talk, we get that experience, or when we meditate together, we all of us get that deep experience. But why don't we get it later on? Please do inquire, because, I keep giving the answer, but the answer is mine. You have to own up to that answer. And that ownership will come when it comes from within you. And that will come only when you do a lot of manana on it, because it has to fall into place inside of you. And you must say, oh, I know now what it means when we say that the consciousness appears when we achieve that stillness. So the mind will get stilled if we choose to not just ignore it, but know it, that the mind is the cause of all our pain. The mind is the cause of all our births, and that the mind by itself just does not exist. And if we focus on that experience of peace, and if we focus it every day, why can't we experience it all the time? We must ask ourselves this question. I want somebody to come up with this, what they have figured out, why this experience does not become permanent. Is it because we don't want it? Is it because we are not willing to put the effort for it? Is it because we are too lazy? Or is there some other challenges that we are not able to overcome? I think we need to start getting more and more deeper into what bothers us, or what is still coming in the way of our practicing manana and nididhyasana, because that's the only way to get it. At least now we will be able to recognize it, because we recognize what that experience is. So we know what our goal is, and we know that we achieve it, in between, many times in a day, sometimes for a couple of days. But why it doesn't remain? And how can we integrate this excessive energy that each one of us is experiencing given the enhanced state of consciousness? So we will talk about the mind in the next couple of sessions more, and from then on we start getting into various experiences and playing with various situations and some of the practices that we will do. I really would urge each one of you to please put on your thinking cap and do a lot more manana, because the answer lies there. The answer has to come from within. From each one of you has to figure out your own connect. And once you get that connection, it will never go away, right? Because each one of us connects to it in a different way. And the reason my connections will never work is because it's coming from me. It's not connecting within you. And you're there, each one of us relates to it a little differently, and it'll happen. So remember, impermanent world, everything is impermanent, including whatever I have told you right now is impermanent. But what you're going to experience within you is permanent. All that our all the five senses, hearing, smelling, seeing, touching, movement, everything is impermanent. All perceived by the five senses is impermanent. We consume, whatever we are consuming through our senses is impermanent, because the permanent cannot be perceived by any of these senses. We can experience it and abstract. How do we know? When we say I'm feeling deep peace or I'm feeling contented. Now, what is this feeling about? How do we know what deep peace really means, other than there is a word called peace? How have we languaged it to know that peace means peace? So a lot of expansion and love to everybody. I hope tonight you expand even more. So by saying this, thank you so much, and lots of love to all of you. Sai Ram. Bye-bye.